Okay, people, let's talk about Chainsaw Man, Chapter 30, titled Even More Battered. So, as a reminder what happened last chapter, Aki and Power met this new guy who decided he was going to train them on behalf of Makima. Why? Mainly because Denji and Power both are devils in a way, but they're almost nowhere close to the level of the enemies that recently attacked them in the previous arc, where Himeno died, most of the Special Hunter divisions died, and Denji just was out of commission for most of the fight, and he was useless. Even though on their team he was the strongest. So Makima was like, okay, you two need to be trained. And that's where this guy comes in. This guy that loves to drink and kill devils, apparently. So last chapter, the guy met Power and Denji, and one of the first things he did, he broke their necks. He wasn't, I thought he was trying to choke them out or something last chapter, but no, he straight up broke their necks. And that's why in the beginning of this chapter, Denji and Power are on the ground, unable to move, because their spines are disconnected from the heads. Honestly, they should technically be dead, but the devils, part devils at least. And that's what this guy says. He says, you both are part human. You have the bone structure, the inner physiology of a human. Denji being a devil man, I guess that's the best way to describe his condition. And Power being a fiend or a devil that took over a human's body by force. Denji is a human that made a deal with a devil to have its power. So that's just the differences so far. Continuing, he did this because he wants to train them up, and the only way he can think of training these two, because they're basically immortal, is to continue fighting them until they can beat him. The general manga plot, you find a master that's willing to train you, and he says, alright, once you are able to cut this boulder in half, your training will be complete. Or once you carry this pail of water up and down that mountain so many times, your training will be complete. Whatever. Jiraiya kicked Naruto into a cavern to force him to summon Gamabunta, the giant frog. And it was okay, you're training for that. Summoning is complete, blah, blah, blah. So that's what this guy's doing. He's continuously injuring them so that they can be forced to get stronger. And before you think this guy is completely crazy, let me tell you, he is. He admits it himself. He's a crazy drunk who loves to kill devils. And that's what he does. He also trains other devil hunters. Like I said in the previous chapter, he trained Himeno. He might have also trained some other characters. He might have trained Makima. I don't know. He might have trained those two scar-faced individuals that we're going to talk about later. I don't remember their names. And I thought he might have trained Aki, but I don't think so. I think Aki's definitely not insane enough to be trained by this guy. And that's what this guy likes to brag about. He likes to brag about, I'm insane, and you have to be insane to fight devils. So, after you're done training with me, you're gonna be crazy. Now let me talk about the actual mini fight scene we see between Denji, Power, and this old guy. After he breaks Denji's and Power's neck and tells them what's gonna happen, he grabs a knife and says, let's fight. Power makes a hammer out of her blood, gives it to Denji, and they're about to throw some dukes. Sadly, they are completely outmatched against this old guy. Denji tries to swing on him, the guy stabs him 20 times in the chest. He finishes off Denji by sticking the knife in his head and simply cutting Power's throat. Saying this because Power isn't completely immortal. If she got her head cut off or her brain destroyed, she would die. Unlike Denji, who has basically completely died, but as soon as he gets blood in him, consumes it in any form or matter, he can get back up. Power can't. That's pretty cool because we get to see what's the extent of Power's range. We understood that she wasn't as strong as Denji, and it seemed like she wasn't as strong as the other double hunters like Aki or Himeno, but getting to see where she stands in the pack. And as we can see, neither Denji or Power stand pretty high in the the food chain, because the guy kills them instantly and is this is gonna be fun. I never had toys to play with as a kid. And then we switch over to see what Aki's doing. Luckily, Aki is not going through as much of a traumatic experience as Denji or Power, because he's still in the hospital, and the two Scarface individuals I was talking about earlier are there to talk about him. They ask him to try to summon his Fox Devil. He can't. He lost a contract with it because the Fox Devil basically was destroyed by the Machete Chainsaw Man back in chapter 21 or whatever. And they try to ask Aki how much longer does he have, because if he used his Cursed Devil, and Aki doesn't answer. And the main point of them being here is they're trying to gauge if Aki is going to leave the Special Devil Hunters. They're trying to see if Aki's going to leave the Special Division, because since they go after the strongest devils in Japan, they need individuals who aren't going to leave like Four Eyes did in the last chapter, previous 2 chapters ago, whatever. They'll talk about how all this stuff you need to have resolved, and if you don't, we're going to have to ask you to go off to the special sector, work a nice cushy business job. Don't bother being here, because if you're not willing to fight, we don't need you. And Aki just looks at them and is like, the devil who killed my family is still out there. The devil who killed my friend is still out there. Why the hell would I quit my job if I haven't had the chance to kill them yet? And they're just like, okay, understood. Hope you keep that resolve up. Keep that energy. And they leave. But before they leave, someone else is coming into Aki's room. And he looks at her. We don't get to see her face. He looks at her and has a face of surprise, of shock. Because what I'm guessing, and what people online are guessing, is that this is like Himeno's sister or something. Which we don't know. I don't believe we know if she has any siblings or anything. As far as I know, that hasn't been talked about in the manga. But maybe she does. And if it is, it would probably definitely be a shock to Aki to see someone very similar to his best friend who recently died. But we don't get to see that, and we get to see the transition to that. It's nighttime. And Denji and Power are still fighting this old guy. But he says, I'm getting tired. I'm going to go home. I'll find you at your place tomorrow. And once he leaves, Denji just collapses. He's like, he can't get up. Because apparently he's still had brain damage from the last time the guy killed him. So I don't know if Power like gave him some of her blood, or she just started punching him in the face. Because the next thing we see is that Denji has a bloody nose and a bloody face as he wakes up again. And he asks Power, how many times did I die? And she was like, 20 at least. But she's like, I don't know for sure, because every time you died, I got knocked out. And then we get these few panels seeing Denji and Power talking about how strong this guy is, how it's like almost impossible to beat him, and how it would be much better if they could just leave. They're standing in the middle of the road and they're like, we should just walk away. But of course they know they can't, because if they ever did that, Makima would probably personally hunt them down and kill them. So that's out of their heads. They're not gonna do that. What they do think of is that they need a plan to fight this guy. And Power, the smartest girl on the planet, decides we need to beat him with our brains. He's an old, drunken guy. So he might be strong and fast, but if we just think about a way to defeat him, we'll be able to defeat him. And you think, well, if this idea is coming from Power, one of the smartest devils in the manga, it has to be true. And Denji agrees, saying, oh, that's a cool idea. Just like what those manga characters do, right? Powers agrees, and they decide we're going to come up with a plan and beat him with our brains. It's really funny, because in the last panel, Power says we're going to kill him with our minds, and Denji says, I feel smarter already. And if you know anything about this manga, 30 chapters in, you know that these two are not very smart. They are basically children. They just like killing. Like, they have the instinct to be able to kill people. That's basically it. They don't even have the instinct to kill them very well. It's just that Denji has the raw power to be able to kill them with his chainsaw form, and Power has the willingness to try to kill someone, but as soon as she sees, oh, you're too strong for me, I'll leave. So the idea of them trying to kill this guy with their brains is pretty hilarious. But with that, that's the end of the chapter. I enjoyed it. It was a nice, lighthearted chapter, considering all the horrible stuff that's been happening to these characters the past 10 chapters. So yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. And peace.